Hello, and welcome to TechFunnel.com's interview series for Women's History Month. My name is Danny White, and today we have joining us Morene Mouser. Morene is the Vice President of Influence Company, a content marketing agency that specializes in helping companies showcase their expertise through engaging thought leadership and position their key employees as influencers in their industry. Welcome, Morene. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks for having me.
All right. So tell us a little bit about your background, your education, and how you navigate life as a successful woman in content marketing industry.
Well, first off, thank you for saying that I'm successful. If I would necessarily say that I definitely think I'm in the middle of my professional journey, but taking it back a little bit, I went to the University of Missouri in Columbia and had a business degree with an emphasis in marketing and sales.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely helped me start my career off right. While I was in school, I spent 3 of my 4 years interning at a company there to help me gain professional experience that way. And I really think that that was crucial in gaining the knowledge that I needed just to be in a professional setting. And that, of course, led me to my first full-time job with the same company out of school. Up until now, my careers have not necessarily been in marketing per se. Obviously, I'm super excited to be where I am and actually using my degree, which a lot of people don't. I was just able to capitalize on any of the opportunities that were thrown my way, whether that was more sales related or marketing or recruiting or account management. And I was fortunate enough to land my current position and have been here for a few years now and able to really grow in that.
Awesome. So what do you think is the biggest impact of having more women in C-level positions such as yours? You're the Vice President of Influence Company within other organizations.
Yeah, great question. So I definitely think that women by nature tend to think differently than men, not necessarily in a better or worse way. Just adding that additional perspective is really going to be key.
Absolutely.
I'm at a company with an all-female leadership team, which is fantastic. We didn't necessarily do that on purpose. And I just think females bring a lot to the table. I almost kind of wish we did have a few males on our leadership team. We did in the past, but don't now. I'm just a huge advocate for having well-balanced leadership teams and diversity, whether that is in your gender, or your race, or your cultural background, for that main reason of just like we all just think differently and have different insights, and being able to bring all that to the table, I think is really crucial.
Cool. So with an all-female leadership team, what are some ways that you go about empowering and encouraging the women on your team?
Yeah, so my team specifically is actually almost all females as well, which is not by choice. I work really closely with sales and marketing. I think by nature, those industries or those departments tend to be a little bit more female heavy, especially in marketing. But we're all about women empowerment. Our founder and CEO, Kelsey Raymond, is super huge on that. She was actually on the Forbes 30 Under 30 a few years ago. Yeah, she's a really inspiring woman, and I definitely look up to her. And I think she definitely leads by example, and we have a lot of talented females on our leadership team, of course, that all lead by example. And I think that in itself is just a way to encourage other females on our team, because it's such just an encouraging group by nature.
Awesome. So throughout your career, you've obviously played a role in many different roles. So what are some risks that you've had to take in your career, and what suggestions do you have for other women who need to take that step of faith in their own careers, whether it is seeking that promotion for a new role or a higher position, or even pivoting and moving out of their current company into another company?
Yeah, actually, that leads into probably what my answer would be, is really just switching career paths altogether. I would say that that's the biggest risk, or even multiple risks, that I've taken in my professional career. I've taken that a couple of times now. if you think about it, like 20, 30 years ago, it was oftentimes seen as a bad thing to change careers, as most people were staying within one company all the way until retirement. But nowadays, I've done it several times. I've learned firsthand that it's a really big asset to actually have different roles, not just in different companies, but different types of roles, because you're able to gain valuable knowledge from those different industries, the different people you're working with. And so I think that's a big risk that I have taken several times that I'm glad I have. And fortunately, each time I've taken that risk, I strongly believe that it was the best next step for me in really driving my overall career and my development and my knowledge. I guess my advice to other women looking to take a similar risk is just, it's not always easy or fun, but do what you love to do. And if for some reason, like, you're unhappy with your job or you feel yourself constantly complaining about it, like, take your career in your own hands and just take that risk and take that leap of faith. And, it's daunting, but if you build your network and you just keep your head down and work really hard, I think great things will happen. And you just have to be open to any opportunity and not be closed off if you're a little bit too siloed. I only want this type of job at this type of company. I think just keeping your opportunity and your eyes open is definitely going to be key there.
Awesome. Definitely pivoting and taking those risks can be daunting, but actually doing that at a right time in your career can be the best decision that you have ever made. So I know that you have an all-female leadership team, which is really awesome. So over the past couple of years, like, the issues of workplace diversity and inclusion have been discussed at length by both men and women. So what are your views on this subject?
Yeah. I think, and I might be a little bit skewed because of the company I'm in, but I've also been in primarily male-led teams before as well. I definitely think companies have made huge strides towards being more diverse in, of course, gender, but also in other aspects like race and religion and beliefs.
Absolutely.
I think some companies just naturally, just the way they are, typically attract more men. Like if you're in engineering or in finance, and then some companies like marketing, a lot of times attract more females. So I don't necessarily think that it's a terrible thing if you skew one way or another. I think that's just the nature of certain industries. I have been really fortunate that as a woman and a woman of color, I've really never felt disadvantaged in any kind of career opportunities, which I know a lot of people do still struggle with. But I think that's a huge testament to where professional companies have gone, just even in the last 1 to 2 decades. And I'm just hoping that it continues to move forward in that way.
Absolutely. So would you credit that to maybe your education or just your ability to work hard or overcome obstacles, or what would you credit that to?
I think it's a mixture of all of those. I definitely think having an education is great, but I don't think it's the highest driver of that. As long as you have a lot of companies, as long as you have a degree, most of them don't really care if it's from Harvard or Duke or me. I went to a state school or even a private school. I think more so it's related to your work ethic. And if you can just get the job done at the end of the day, I think if it's the right type of employer, they're going to be looking at your talents and your abilities versus just what your school is or what your GPA was on a piece of paper.
Cool. What's one leadership mistake you've made and one leadership lesson you have learned in your career?
So this one is a very interesting question. And I hate to shoot myself in the foot here, but I definitely think that the biggest mistake for me is probably being a little bit too black and white in a lot of things. Okay. Basically, sometimes I've learned that it's okay to be in the gray, meaning I've been in a lot of numbers driven roles for my different jobs and my different careers. And numbers are really great when you're setting goals and you're using them as benchmarks. But I found that sometimes qualitative factors can be just as or even more important as the quantitative numbers. And at the end of the day, I don't want you or anybody else to feel like you're just a number. And so that's definitely a mistake that I made, and just a lesson that I've learned over the years of looking at the big picture. And it's okay, like going back to that analogy, it's okay if it's not black and white. Sometimes things are gray, and that's just the way they're supposed to be.
Cool. Amazing. We can definitely learn that lesson as well. What's the best and worst advice that you have ever received in your career path?
Yeah, similar to what I previously stated, I would say that the best advice is really just to do what makes you happy. I know that sounds a little cliche, but I've definitely learned that kind of the hard way. My first job out of college was basically, typical 21, 22-year-old. I took the job that paid the highest, to be completely honest. And I know a lot of people do that, and I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do, but it was not necessarily a job that I was excited to do. And you have to be really passionate about what your career is and what you do day to day.
You absolutely do. Yeah.
And so that advice is just find what makes you happy and then work hard at it. And then the rest will really follow. And I actually really believe that. And then I would say that the worst advice is, and this might sound a little counterintuitive, but the worst advice I've gotten is the phrase, pay your dues. And I guess to an extent, because sometimes you truly need to learn and grow in a profession in order for you to actually have the knowledge of sort of moving up ranks, if you will. Right. But I'm a strong believer in hiring, kind of like I mentioned before, on your knowledge and your skill, and not really like a number on a piece of paper, meaning you have to have a minimum of 5 to 8 years of experience in X, Y, Z. If you can prove to me that regardless of that, of the number, that you have the skills and skill sets and talents to do that job, I think that should take precedent. So not to say you shouldn't pay your dues, but in some regards, I think a lot of companies don't care what your talent level is. It is solely just based on your tenure or a number on a piece of paper.
Right. That's absolutely some of the worst advice that one could receive, that you're defined by your GPA score, you're defined by what degree you got, or you're defined by how many ranks you have, or something like that. So definitely great advice, great points. Thank you so much, Morene. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you guys for listening to this interview. For these and other interviews and topics, please visit techfunnel.com, connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our weekly newsletter so you can take up to date on what's happening in the industry.